Greetings, humans. Welcome to the Black Pill, taking place from an undisclosed secret location deep in the bowels of a university in an empty classroom. So this thing is called No Ad Hominem Attacks. The ideal scientific attitude is this: I'll believe anything anyone says as long as it's supported by evidence. But really, anyone? Anyone at all? You'll listen to any argument from anyone at all, as long as there seems to be an evidentiary basis. One of the inviolable rules of rational discourse is the one in the title. Attempts to discredit the speaker are strictly out of bounds. The assertions are all that matters. Stupid people can say things that are actually correct, as can hateful people, racists, politicians, people who put pineapple on their pizza. So we should evaluate only the evidence. But do we really meet those standards as academics and scientists and rational evaluators? And should we meet those standards? Is science best when it's completely naive and objective? Or might it be relevant that the person making an assertion has some vested interest in the facts being as they portray them? For example, Wakefield's vaccination study was accepted despite the fact that Wakefield had patented a competing vaccine without the ingredients implicated in his study. And there's a linky-dealy on just a little corner of the investigation that took place over time. If he had disclosed such ties, then perhaps maybe his work might have come under more scrutiny, and more scrutiny from relevant people earlier. Should it not have? Ought we to have accepted his assertions as uncritically as we did before we knew about his conflicts of interests? We might have been spared the whole anti-vax movement, whose epicenter was that historic, flawed, broken Lancet article. And inasmuch as vaccine hesitancy during COVID is a spin-off movement of the anti-vax movement generally, how many lives might have been saved by saying, yeah, but Wakefield's not a impartial writer on this subject. Wakefield's not an impartial interviewee on Good Morning Britain. He's grinding a particular axe, and shouldn't we know about that axe before giving him like unlimited free press? When Ken Ham goes after evolution, should we ignore the fact that he stands to make an immense amount of profit exploiting our unsophisticated knowledge of science? Or should we accept that he's qualified to debate Bill Nye on equal footing? Bear in mind, Bill Nye was paid for the debate, but not for the outcome of the debate. He would not profit from any particular position in the end, unlike Mr. Ham, who makes a ton of money on the Creation Museum. When it comes to politicians, ought we to accept any single assertion that they make? They have a vested interest in presenting a particular face in each particular place. Watch what happens when right-wing politicians appear on liberally slanted shows versus on their home fields. The narrative changes, becomes more rational and less emotional, more based in fact and less based in excited utterances. This is called talking out of both sides of your mouth. You present one set of points, I was going to say facts, but we are talking about politicians. You present one set of points to this audience and a different set of points to this audience to appeal to their biases or reasoning capacity or factual environment. Should you listen to hate groups' assertions about race and IQ? Or just tune them out? Do they really have anything to add to the scientific discourse? What about tobacco-funded studies on smoking, or religiously funded studies on family structure, or coal-funded studies on global warming, or drug company propaganda on the effectiveness of antidepressants, or the cognitive behavioral therapy lobby on how all of the other therapies are inadequate? There's a movement afoot to find any doubt and exploit it for gain, for profit. Because science acknowledges that nothing is ever known with certainty, creationists attempt to insert their own certainty into that small margin of doubt. Oil and gas hire lobbyists to exploit doubt over climate change so we can be certain our habits aren't harmful. It's going to take decades to sort out what for-profit medicine has done to our science journals. More on this in another video, I suppose. But in the three-body problem, Chechen Liu's aliens have confused physics on Earth to such a point that we can make no further progress. There's an electron basically zipping through all of the nuclear facilities, confusing the results of all the experiments so that nothing further can be known and we can't reach the next level of physics to defend ourselves when they come. And when you look particularly at psychotropic medication studies, but medication studies in general, the for-profit drug companies have so just fucked the research that it's very difficult to propose that we know anything about medical compounds at this point. Sorting out the information from the disinformation is an enormous task that we have neither the will nor the funds to engage in very deeply at this time in history. No ad hominem attacks is a great rule. It's a great rule, but it isn't golden. It's only applicable when the person making an assertion has agreed to abide by the same rules of logic and conduct. In other words, don't call out the attributes or characteristics of a person making a sincere attempt to engage with the science, but do call out every time when someone is using those procedures cynically to manipulate those with less sophisticated knowledge of science. Debate is just not a wonderful way of arriving at truth and starting with the premise that you'll evaluate any incoming claim from any comer is, man, there's a kind of arrogance in that. Arrogance, yeah. Because what you're saying is, I am the best mind in the room. I am the best person for the job. I am the smartest and the most logical. And therefore, every time someone makes a claim, whether in good faith or not, I am perfectly qualified to assess that claim. And you're not. I'm not. People are persuasive. People with money behind them and training in advertising and persuasion and propaganda and disinformation are persuasive, and they know how to get into our fields and persuade us. And in the end, we're only like piles of electric meat that ultimately are not very trustworthy. We retain all of our biases. And like, when you strip us down to bare logic, we don't get more logical absent our emotions and our empathy. We get less logical and less capable of making real human decisions about the things that impact us. And so I'm proposing that sometimes the ad hominem, whatever attack, argument is a good argument, you know? 6-day creationism is a paranoid conspiracy theory. Go back and listen to Ken Ham's opening arguments in that debate. It's a gish gallop, and it's just so full of at least misinformation, if not disinformation. Bill Nye doesn't even really try to refute anything in that gish gallop, and it's not a good it's not a good faith argument being made. The stuff that Ham is saying is persuasive to a wide swath of people who are invested in holding that belief. And the more that you give Donald Trump unlimited free airtime on CNN, the more people are persuaded, because they're not using rational, logical basis, and the more like smart people can actually be persuaded of stupid bullshit. We've been letting the clowns run the circus for far too long. Black the out. I should have done this back in the classroom, but I forgot. I'm increasingly disorganized. Derek raises his hand. Ooh, what about? Yes, Derek. Dr. Blackpill, are you suggesting that when someone has fringe ideas that we don't like, or, even demonstrably bad intentions, are you saying that we should just curse them out and call them names and behave super disrespectfully? And thanks for the question, Derek. Now take a seat. Sit down, Derek. Just sit down. Yes, sometimes you should do that. And I have a whole series about respect and the unilateral disarmament portion, where the liberals and the scientists decided not to use that language, but the conservatives and the fundamentalists of various stripes, religious, scientific, anti-scientific, political fundamentalists, did not disarm in that manner and are free to use limbic system engagement to change people's minds on emotional bases. I'm not in general suggesting that we go at people on that basis. It's not a good way to arrive at truth. It's not persuasive. If persuasion is something that you're trying to do, it just, it enables a lot of "you're just as bad" arguments and activates limbic systems, which makes people, make more emotional and therefore often more sort of fundamentalist decisions. But yeah, dude, sometimes yes. Sometimes yes. Otherwise, you're engaged in asymmetric warfare, and the conditions where something between outright hostility and gentle mockery are, I would say, between acceptable and required. They're in that video series about when is it okay or even necessary to offend people. So I just commend that to you. Just go have a look at that. Okay, out.